So, today is May the 10th, and on this day, 33 years ago, at 10:32 in the morning, I became the Buddhist monk Panyadipa. It was a wonderful moment in my life where I could take temporary ordination with my teacher and spend this time in the monastery in robes with my shaven head. The ceremony itself was formal, of course, but a beautiful, joyful occasion. And I think many people know the small story where my teacher stood in front of me. He was my preceptor also. And he stood in front of me and he said, "I give you the name Panyadipa, which means island of wisdom. Not because you are wise, but because you come from an island." And it was that kind of intimate joyfulness that really made my relationship with him, was always like that. It was this joyful celebration of Dharma in our life. There are many stories about the ordination, and I tell them often on retreat for when people are interested enough. And I think they're all in my autobiography. But there is one story that before you become the monk, then you are asked certain questions and you have to answer them formally. And the questions may sound ludicrous to us now, but they are part of a tradition and you have to answer properly. And one of the questions is, you're asked if you are a man or an animal. And you have to answer, as I say, properly. So my teacher stood in front of me and he looked at me and seriously he said, "Are you a man or an animal?" And I said, "Bhante, I am a man." And he turned away, then suddenly turned back with this beautiful smile on his face and said, "Are you sure?" So this was the celebration. This is what I'm celebrating today, 33 years ago. And even though I no longer wear robes, my life is still that of a monk. But as I have said in other videos, not of a Buddhist bhikkhu, but of a Dharma bhikkhu. This simple life to celebrate awareness and love and compassion and joy, this joy of being. So the story this morning, actually I told to my own teacher many years after my ordination, and he enjoyed it a lot. But this story was given to me by yet another teacher who seemed to like me quite well, because when I was teaching in India for all those years, he would send his monks to come and sit retreats with us. And the story is, it has the sense of being a joke at the beginning, but actually when you open it, you see the Dharma content. It's like a lotus flower in the morning. And so that's the story I want to share with you today. So here it is. At one time, a father went to his son's room. He said, "Wake up, it's time for school." And the son replied, "I don't want to go. I hate it. It's boring. And the kids all tease me." And the father said, "Now you have to go, and I will give you 3 reasons why. 1, it's your duty. 2, you're 45 years old. And 3, you're the teacher." So that's the story. The father went to his son's room and he said, "Wake up, it's time for school." This is the cry from the heart of the Dharma master to the students, to the disciples. Wake up. You're living in a dream state. You're making all the things that are unreal, real. You're building your life upon a foundation that's not secure. And so we chase happiness all the time. We're running and running and running. If I just have this, or if I just have this, whatever it is, happiness is always perceived as a goal in the future somewhere. We have a list of things we need to be happy, and whether they're material or emotional, psychological, whatever. Even spiritual practice, of course, comes into that. So happiness is always perceived as a goal of the future. But the master says, well, wake up, because it's not like that. Happiness is right here, right now. It's a condition that lives in your heart if you just put down the fantasy of life. The only thing that we can do in our life that has real value is to awaken from the fantasy, from the dream state that we continually empower. Of course, most people don't want to wake up because it's a difficult process to let go of all our habits and our ideas and our opinions, let them all fall away, and just to allow the heart itself to manifest. So most people don't really want to wake up. What they want is their bed to be more comfortable. And that's how the world is now. But when you come to Dharma, those ideas are really pushed away very quickly. It doesn't matter how much you have. It doesn't matter how intelligent you are. Struggling or suffering with life is always there. It's always on your shoulder until you release or put down or let go of the conditions that lead to that struggle or that suffering. So the Master cries from the heart, he cries, wake up. The son says, well, I don't want to. And of course, that's a common response also. We either see intuitively, we see the value of our Dharma life, or we don't. Dharma is like a joke. You either get it or you don't get it. But it can't really be explained. It's like compassion. It's like not eating meat or not being cruel to animals. You either understand this intuitively or you can speak to someone forever and it just bypasses them. So we have this situation where Dharma is only for those who are in a way already in tune with it. So the father says, wake up. The son says, I don't want to. I don't want to go to school. I don't want to use my life as the vehicle for my Dharma practice. I don't want to investigate old age, sickness and death. I don't want to look at those things. I want to ignore them. And I want to just be happy all the time. As I say, it's not possible. And your own life experience, of course, shows you that. And then the son, elaborates on that. I don't want to go. I hate it. Well, it can be like that. We can become very frustrated with our Dharma life. When you go to the master and you're given the instructions for practice, you say, well, that's not what I wanted. One teacher said, from the ego's point of view, the spiritual life is just one insult after another. It's the ego, this idea, well, I'll get something from this that brings you to your cushion. And then at some point the ego realizes, this self-identity realizes, oh, I'm the one that's causing all the difficulty, so I'm the one that has to leave. So we can get, distressed about this idea of, well, I don't want to do it. I thought the Dharma life would bring happiness into my life where I could have more and more things, rather than this emptying out of all the difficulties, the cause of all the difficulties that we meet in our life. He says, I hate it. It's boring. So anyone who has a sincere Dharma practice knows that's a quality of mind that we meet at least occasionally. I can say often, but at least occasionally. But boredom is such a wonderful thing to look at in your meditation because it's such a dangerous thing to have in your life. Look at the kinds of things that people do when they're bored. So boredom is a feature of our life, and because of that it leads us into all kinds of difficulties. And so we look at it. We look at this impermanent movement of mind. Boredom arises. We sit with it. We be with it until it falls away. And then the next, excuse this crude example, but this next level of mind arises. And so we can be with that. And then the next, and the next, and the next. Not grasping, not chasing after them, not trying to push them away, but simply being with them. And that simply being is the road to our liberation. Because they're all just like clouds passing through the sky of the mind. And each one only has the power that you give it. And if you don't feed it, if you don't indulge it or repress it, it can't stay. So beautiful. This is my Dharma expression because it's based on my relationship to my life, having committed 50 years now. 50 years to Dharma. Beautiful. He says, I hate it. It's boring. And the kids all tease me. Well, I think now in these modern times, that's not what happens. I think people are quite open to the idea of spiritual training, or meditation at least. But when I started all those years ago, of course, it was a new thing. It was a new phenomenon. And we had the Maharishi Mahesh Yogi presenting transcendental meditation, of course, made popular in the UK by the Beatles. And I was instantly attracted to that. Without knowing anything about it, it resonated with my heart, this idea of sitting with the mind. And so I began that. And then, my small local group of friends and acquaintances and people I worked with, would know that I'm the strange one, I'm the weird one, because I'm meditating. What a strange thing to do. And I had long hair, so that didn't help either. And then even later, I spent 11 years working in a factory, which I have to say was a great teacher. I didn't like it so much, but it was a great teacher. If we have this Dharma heart, then life is our teacher. And whatever we're meeting is providing these beautiful Dharma lessons. We can see this self-identity, this ego, chasing after things or resisting or complaining. And so I worked in this factory. As I say, it was a great teacher. I've worked in a factory, I've lived in a monastery. I wouldn't want to say which was the better teacher. It depends on your own heart. And so when I worked in the factory, people would tease me. I think in a friendly way. For I had, part of my job was to kind of wander around the factory. I think it wasn't classified as wandering, but that's what I did. And I would wander around the factory, and then people would shout out at me to come and see them. And they would shout things like, "Oi, Gandhi." Which I think is quite funny. Or even more, they would shout, "Oi, Buddha." And then I would have to go and see them and see what they wanted, etc., etc. So the boy said, "I hate it. It's boring, and the kids all tease me." Now the father has to reply. And like the Dharma teacher, when we're given all these reasons why people don't want to practice, or why okay, your practice is your affair. If you don't want to practice, that's fine with me. I have one simple rule, really about my relationship with disciples, is you must not come to me and explain why you haven't meditated this week, because I don't mind. Your practice is your affair. The more you commit to it, the more you will receive the results of committing to this beautiful Dharma practice. So the father replies, he said, "You have to go. If you want to be happy in your life," I say this often enough, but if you want to be happy in your life, you have to cultivate a loving heart. But also alongside that, you have to cultivate awareness, so you're no longer just following the mind as it takes you from one thing to the next to the next. You have to cultivate this awareness. So we have these two aspects of our Dharma life. We have love and awareness. These two things are rising together. Love, unconditional acceptance of the moment as it is. And awareness, just to see that. Just to see that. So the father said, "You have to go, and I'll give you 3 reasons why. 1, it's your duty." Well, of course, in Dharma, we don't speak about duty. So it's not really your duty, but it is your opportunity. You have taken human birth. What greater thing to do with this wonderful opportunity than to commit to a Dharma practice, to a life established in love and awareness, where you will be happy and then share that happiness with everyone that you come into contact with. So beautiful. So we have this opportunity. We live in countries where we're not restricted by the idea that we could sit in meditation, or we can go and do Dhamma retreats, that we can listen to Dharma talks like this, where we can choose how we live. We have enormous amounts of freedom that not everyone in the world has, and we have money and finances to support that life. And if you want to be vegetarian or vegan, you can just do it, and it's not even so difficult. You only have to make that commitment, but you can go to supermarkets now and quite easily buy food that's not involved in animal cruelty. So we have this wonderful opportunity, and it's only whether we take it or not. So the father said, "You have to go. If you want to be happy, you have to commit to this life, because it's your opportunity. It's your opportunity to use this actually short time we have. You think when you're young, you think, well, if you live to be 70 or 80, that's a long way in the future and many things can happen. Of course, that is true. Except that when you get to 70 or 80, your life seems to have gone very quickly, and the time that you missed is gone forever. They say that the best time to plant a tree is 20 years ago, but the next best time is now. And that's our Dharma practice, which comes to the next point. The Father said, it's your duty. And the second reason is, you're 45 years old. Now, of course, I don't know who hears these things, and most of you, I don't know how old you are. But what you have to understand is, however old you are now, right now in this moment, you are the perfect age for awakening. You're not too old and you're not too young. If you hear these words and they resonate in your heart, then you have the aptitude to commit to Dharma, to commit to a life that is based around bringing no harm to yourself or to the world, the environment that you're part of. So this is, this is the word of the day, beautiful. It's just so beautiful. Many older people have come to me at different times and said, well, I wish I'd heard this Dharma 20 years ago. Well, perhaps you did hear this Dharma 20 years ago, but it didn't connect with your heart then. So the right time now is now. It's this moment now. And to be young. Confucius said that he would not accept students who were less than 40 years old. Well, I understand that, because what we need for our Dharma life is a life experience, something we can look at, we can investigate. Yes, was I happy when I was doing all these things? Perhaps you were. And then you reflect, but it's gone. The happiness didn't last. And so I had to look for the next thing and the next thing and the next thing. Our life is built upon this desire of always appeasing, this need to feel comfortable, to feel secure. But younger people now, have much greater life experience than even I did, so many years ago. And I was part of or just in the aftermath of this social revolution of the 60s. And so younger people now have a greater opportunity. And so we don't turn away young people and say, well, you're not old enough to understand Dharma. We just offer it and see how receptive they are. And of course, many struggle. Of course they do. But bringing Dharma to your life at a young age, which is what I did, really didn't stop me from enjoying relationships and going to rock bands, those kinds of things. Only later, the balance changed and I became a monk. And I stayed with my teacher, for 22 years we were together. And I'm so grateful that at least part of that time I was a monk. So he says, you're 45 years old. And then the last thing he says is, and you're the teacher. Now, Dharma is about a self-investigation. When we do our formal vipassana or satipatthana meditation, we're taking a posture. And then we're turning our attention inside. First to the breath, to the natural breath. We're not trying to control it. We're not trying to do anything. And mostly, really, we have to have this intention of, I'm not trying to get something. I'm not doing this to get something else, because that's part of the desire mind, isn't it? I'm doing this to get that. So when we have a mature understanding of our meditation practice, we just sit. And we sit and be with this mind as it is. And thoughts arise, and moods and feelings and emotions. And we see the life we have built for ourselves. We see it as this endless stream of mind, of thoughts, moods, feelings, and emotions. Arising and passing away, arising and passing away. And if we can just be with that, then we enter this beautiful path called the Visuddhimagga, the path of purification, to let go and let go and let go, to see everything as clouds passing through a sky, and that whatever we meet only has the power that we give it. So if we don't feed it, it can't stay, and if it can't stay, it falls away. And when it falls away in this way, because we haven't tried to repress it, and we certainly haven't tried to indulge it, then we meet this liberation, because it means that we've just released something from our old story, some fear or some desire. And if we let go a little, there's a little peace. And we just start in that place. If we let go a little. You know, I say it to people on the retreats very often, you don't all have to be enlightened by the end of this retreat. But if you do the practice, if you do it properly, if you do it with elegance and determination and a gentleness, but not too gentle, but a gentleness, to sit, to be with the mind as it manifests in this moment, to see it, to know it, and to release your identification with it as being who and what you are. And then the awareness becomes stronger. And we begin to see that with every thought, every mood, every feeling, every emotion, every mind state, there is a simultaneous sensation in the body. So our attention naturally gravitates towards these sensations. And this is called letting go a lot. And then we just continue with this, seeing our life becoming lighter and lighter, recognizing that the way we experience life is coming from us. It's not coming from life itself. Life is just life. Life doesn't care about us at all. One day the sun is shining, one day it's raining, one day the world is infected with coronavirus. That's just life. But how we respond to all those things, from the most subtle to the most gross, is coming from us. And so the teaching is live with love and be aware. Open your heart so you're not struggling against the things you can't control, and be aware of your response or your reaction to these things. And then let go of your identification with this mind, of this thought, this mood, this feeling, this emotion, as always being that limited sense of who and what you are. This is me. I am angry. No. Anger arises and passes away, and you're still here. So you were not the anger. So we can say that, to use anger as an example, anger is not what we are, it's only what we become in different moments when we attach to it, when we identify with it, with this complaining mind. So we let go and let go and let go. Now, this is I do consider this to be a privilege in my life, to have been instructed by my teacher to take this Dharma into the world and to share with everyone who comes. You know, we don't make distinctions, certainly not based on gender, not based on age, not based on physical appearance. All are welcome. The only condition is they have to be respectful, to what's happening. But you don't have to agree with me. And I have never had that idea. I've been doing this for a long, long time now. But I've never had that idea that my work is to convince you that I'm right and you should listen to me. This is not Dharma when we speak in this way. Dharma is that I share something with you and you take it with you. You reflect upon it. Is it true or not? If I let go a little, is there really a little more peace in my life? And if I let go a lot, is there really a lot more peace in my life? Now I can say, yes, there is, because this is the process. But to believe me, to leave, the Dharma hall or even this video and say Michael Cooley says that if I let go a little, there'll be a little more peace in my life, and I believe him. That's not going to help you. You have to go past the idea of defending the words of the teacher. You have to know from your own experience. This is the way of life. And to do all that, we turn inwards. That's the beauty of it, that we turn inwards. So who is the teacher? The teacher, the place that I would take, is often called the Kalyana Mitta, the spiritual friend, the one who gives you, traditionally it's translated as the one who gives you the object for meditation. So I share something with you in that respect. I share this meditation practice that was shared to me by my teacher, that was shared to him by his teacher, and so on, right back to the Buddha, according to this Theravada tradition, right back to the teacher. One time when I met my teacher in Buddha Gaya, where I was teaching, we had this early morning conversation. And I asked him quite simply, so Bhante, who was your teacher? And without missing a beat, he gestured to a statue of the Buddha and said, the Buddha. Now, he'd had many teachers. He was Burmese, and so he'd had many teachers in Burma. But when asked that question, well, who is your teacher? Who is it really? He just gestured to this statue and said, the Buddha. The Buddha taught his disciples, who taught their disciples, who taught their disciples, and so on, until my teachers taught me, and I taught you, and now you teach your disciples. And this is the unbroken line of Dharma. So this is, of course, it's kind of overwhelming to be spoken to like that by your teacher, but nevertheless, this Dharma is shared. It's not instructions of how you should live. The teacher is only the finger pointing to the moon, but not the moon itself. And so we turn inwards. We find our place in life. And if we want to be free, we have to commit to this life of love and to this life of awareness, and recognize that the external teacher is only the finger pointing to the moon. And the work that needs to be done, we have to do for ourselves, because no one can do it for us. So this is the Dhamma, and this is the story I want to share with you this morning. And so I offer these few words for your consideration and your reflection, and may you all be well and happy. And I thank you.